Rarely has mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. If we find intelligent species, ritual extraterrestrials, undesirable invaders from another world, must be destroyed if possible that our dark past. Watch out and pray.
Welcome to the first episode of Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. This is a brand new sci-fi, alien abduction, ghosts, paranormal, really anything under the sun, like spooky and unexplained. And we're gonna try to explain it. Well, I don't know anything about any of this, so that's why we have our resident tinfoil hat expert, Nick, right here.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, how's it going?
He's the guy who actually has all the information and the stories. I'm kind of going. My name is. I'll go by Tasker on this one because that's my last name. It's just it'll flow a lot better.
And my name is Nick. I'm gonna be your guide through everything creepy, macabre, and just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're really going for, like outlandish stuff that like isn't really formally explored. I mean, we've seen and heard about, like all the sorts of crazy people, murderers, and all that stuff, but we want to get into more of the post-human, if I may.
The unexplained, the things that may or may not be bullshit.
Yeah, and most of it might be bullshit.
Let's let the facts decide, all right? I did a lot of research for this episode. I don't want you to just throw it out the window all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, we're looking at, we're starting off actually with an abduction. We're gonna dive right in. We're not gonna, spend too much time on introductions here. We know you all came for the information, or because we asked you to listen to this, and or we actually have you on gunpoint, having you listen to this right now.
I just want to say hi, Mom. Thanks for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to me.
Oh, and hello, Kiwi. He's a pug and also our number one fan, too.
Yeah, so right now we have a fan base of 2.
Yeah. And one of them is like kind of against their will. It's like Kiwi doesn't get fed unless he listens.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know what? You gotta pay to play.
Yeah,
so
he's a freeloader, so he's got to earn his keep, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways. We are talking about the, I'm still going to mess it, Gundiah-Mackay? Is that?
Okay, now I want to say something about this. It's the Gundiah-Mackay abduction. I will say I've done hours of YouTube research on this just to figure out how to pronounce those 2 words. The problem is, I can't understand a goddamn word they're saying over in Australia.
Oh, this is in Australia.
So this doesn't help me at all. So I'm 80% sure it's the Gundiah-Mackay abduction. And now if the one person listening to this podcast will leave a comment and let me know if I'm correct or not, that would be awesome. But yes, it's the Gundiah-Mackay abduction. It took place in Queensland, Australia in 2001, and it's the abduction of Amy Rylance.
I'm actually, sorry to go back to this. You think it works better if you say it with like the accent? Like, because it's a real bushland story. It's my bad. Gundiah-Mackay is
the Gundiah-Mackay abduction.
Yeah.
So let me read from this in the accent there. The Gundiah-Mackay abduction was the alleged extraterrestrial abduction of Amy Rylance, which took place in 2001 in Queensland, Australia.
Nice.
Now, I hope I don't get hate for that, because I'm pretty sure anybody from Australia just switched off.
Yeah. You were way closer with the accent than I was. I'm actually like horrified at what I've done. But you know what? With here on this podcast, we are going to deal with the karma we put out.
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes our voices aren't going to be the best. And yeah, we're going to travel all over the world in this podcast. Mm-hmm. So there are going to be offensive dialect attempts, all right? It's going to happen because, dude, we're 2 guys from California. I don't know how to do an accent, but we're gonna do it.
Yeah. We don't have enough weed to do the accents proper.
No,
so we're gonna go on with our native tongues for now. But we're gonna give you all a shot. So if you're any listeners from Japan, let me know when you're ready for us to try and you're ready to file a civil lawsuit.
Yeah, just wait till we get to Japan, man. That's going to be offensive.
Dude,
that's going to be bad.
There's some... Okay, so just as, this is the first episode, we can still do kind of intro stuff, but we are going to get into Japanese, like, folklore, like, all those monsters, all of that. That's my personal jam. So, but for now, we're talking aliens. So, that sounds like a Dark Souls monster, but Abduction.
The Gundiah-Mackay Abduction, which I found out is not the script title for a new solo Star Wars movie, by the way. All right, so here's what we got. Late evening of Thursday, October 4th / early morning of Friday, October 5th in 2001 is when this takes place. And there are 3 people involved in the case. Amy Rylance, who is the abductee, Keith Rylance, Amy's husband, and a woman named, I believe it's Petra Heller, who's a friend and business partner of the couple.
It's a dope name.
Petra Heller.
Yeah, Petra. That just sounds so like a sci-fi character. Yeah. Like almost as if this whole situation was casted.
Casted, huh?
Yeah.
Let's you know what? Let's save your skepticism for the end of the episode.
Right. Okay.
All right. So this takes place on their property, and at the time they were working on their property to make it into a winery that was going to be called Whispering Winds, which was also my nickname in high school.
I don't want to know why.
I was a part of a Native American tribe. That was my name.
I thought it had something to do with public restrooms.
A little bit of both. And so there are little caravan houses around the property because it was still being built, right? So there were like these little bungalow type houses, and so that's where this takes place.
And bungalow houses, so these houses are not rooted to the ground though. They are just like,
I believe so. Yeah, they're just like
mobile homes kind of
like when you're doing construction, they bring in that kind of stuff. So it's like a very, which is interesting. It will come to that later too, in that idea of it.
Okay.
So Keith, the husband, goes to sleep around 9:30 in Amy and his bedroom, right? Petra goes to the bedroom, but stays up to read a book. So Keith's asleep, Petra's awake. Amy decides to go to the lounge and watch TV on the couch.
And just so we're clear, Keith is husband, Petra is wife, Amy is daughter?
Yes. Okay. No. Keith is the husband. Amy is Keith's wife, and Petra's a business partner.
Okay. I got that completely wrong. Thank you for clarifying.
It's all right. It's like a weird Brady Bunch going on. It's important to note that all these rooms that they're in right now are close together because, so essentially what happens, both bedrooms had doors connecting to the lounge where Amy was, and both doors were open. So Amy's on the couch, Petra's in her room reading, Keith's asleep in the couple's room, but all the doors are open, so they should be able to hear and see each other, right? Let's see here. Amy then falls asleep on the couch watching television. A couple hours later, near 11:15 p.m., Petra wakes up and goes into the lounge. She sees a very bright light coming through the window and into the lounge where Amy's on the couch. So it's like this idea of solid light that are seen in some UFO and abduction cases where like the light is almost has like a solid factor to it, and it's encases certain areas that it touches. So like
Jello.
Like Jello. It's like light Jello. And Amy is on the couch just swimming in it. Essentially is what's going on.
Okay, so if it wasn't for the fact this was in the middle of the night and completely horrifying, it would actually probably be a pretty good time.
Yeah, like it might feel good. I don't know how good.
Yeah, cathartic for like a second until you realize that, like, because I feel like it's like, a whole pool of Jello thing. Like if you jump in, it'd be fun, but you probably couldn't swim out.
And then you'll drown.
Yeah, in a gooey, delicious, isn't it made with like horse something? Like gelatin is like something has to do with a...
With a horse?
Yeah, a vegan told me that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure a vegan told you that.
Anyways.
Yeah, I leave it to them to ruin Jello for me too. All right. So Petra sees Amy on the couch, kind of surrounded by this solid light, right? Mm-hmm. Petra, apparently she's a little bit of a scaredy cat because she fainted right away. She just like passes out, right? Mm-hmm. But before she fainted, she told people She saw a classic disc-shaped UFO outside the window, very close to the caravan house. So it was like close enough for her to see something metallic, and that's where the solid light was apparently coming from. Petra wakes up from her fainting attack. That apparently is super. She's like a goat.
Yeah, I was actually gonna totally say that. The ones where you open the umbrellas and they just
like stiff-legged and just falls over. Like,
imagine being like that in elementary school, dude. You get bullied so hard.
Yeah, she probably did.
Aw.
So she woke up, just started screaming. Like, she's like, "Oh my god, somebody fucking took Amy!" Right? Just started screaming.
So let me get this straight. So the light comes down, she faints, and then the other two come in, and she's just gone.
So then when she wakes up, Amy's gone, right? So she starts screaming. Keith wakes up because he hears Petra start screaming, and he runs out to see what the hell her problem is, right?
Right.
Because she's yelling in the middle of the living room at like 11:30 p.m. Keith saw on the window screen was slashed open and couldn't get any information out of Petra and her condition. Apparently, she was just like too frazzled by the whole situation. So he ran outside on his own to find Amy, thinking maybe somebody actually like physically abducted her, like a break-in, or maybe she like ran out or something like that. He couldn't find her anywhere outside, and after they both calmed down a little bit, trying to like regain some semblance of like sanity, he was able to get some details from Petra about what happened. Petra explained the solid light, and Amy floating through the window, and Keith would have none of it at first, obviously being some kind of a skeptic like my buddy Tasker over here, right? He doesn't want to hear anything about solid light.
Floating midnight jello. Yeah.
I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds a little crazy.
Right.
But it's real, damn it.
Yeah. We're actually one day going to have a segment where we'll actually have a psychological evaluation of Nick's current status.
Yeah. I'm going to get one done after this podcast, and then I'm going to get one done after 100 podcasts. And if they end up locking me up, you guys know what's going to happen. All right, so Petra explained that about the light, and Keith just wasn't buying it. Most likely thinking she was being delusional from the fainting and like whatever shock of what she might have seen. After a second search for his wife and no sign of her or where she could have gone, Keith called the police, and this was around 11:40 p.m. So from 11:15 to 11:40, this all took place. The abduction, the solid light, Petra fainting, and then finally calling like the authorities. It took place within like, what is that?
Like a half hour?
25 minutes to a half an hour. Yeah, it's crazy. He told the police his wife was abducted, and I don't know if he said by aliens. He probably didn't say that. He told the police his wife was abducted, and they needed to come out to the house to help find her. It took an hour and a half for the police to arrive, by the way, because when you live in buttfuck nowhere in Queensland, Australia, that's how long it actually takes for them to get there.
Or maybe he did say that she got abducted by aliens and they just put her on like the last call.
Yeah, he's like, all right, we're going to move her down a little bit on the list.
Yeah, we can take our time. You want anything from McDonald's on the way?
Exactly. So that's what happened. It took an hour and a half, but they did end up showing up. So the two officers who showed up on the scene were Senior Constable Robert oh boy, here we go. Marangna. That's a name.
That sounds like something edible.
And here comes some more names that I don't know how to pronounce, all right? Because, again, I watched a bunch of stuff from Australia, couldn't understand them, don't know how to pronounce this stuff.
Yeah, we couldn't afford the business trip to understand the culture better. So.
Yes, exactly. So, so that constable was from Tiaro, which is a region in Australia, apparently. And another officer who came from Maryborough, something like that.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Going in initially, the two officers suspected foul play, most likely from Keith and or Petra.
Ooh.
Because if you think about it, right, Keith, Petra, maybe they've been together like as business partners, but they wanted a little bit more. You know what I mean? Maybe they wanted, to make kids or something together, you know?
It was easier to just grab the axe than it would be to kind of, settle things like adults.
Yeah, because I heard in Australia, in order to get a divorce, I heard you can't.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that like it? Really?
Yeah, I heard you can't get a divorce in Australia, so the next thing you got to do is murder.
Yeah, well, I imagine it's not that hard in Australia. You don't even have to do it. Just tell them to go fetch you some water from the well, if that's that could be really actually incredibly racist to me. I don't know if they have water.
They might.
wells,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're in the outback or not, but like,
I think taking out the trash is already like life or death.
Yeah, because there's 12-foot spiders out there waiting to jump you in the bushes.
Yeah, what is it? I might be getting this wrong. I think they're called magpies or something. Those birds that fly down and just like peck the hell out of your head.
What the hell?
Yeah, if you ride a bike, you have to like wear a helmet because these things will like come for you. So
okay, yeah, that's a problem.
So yeah,
we could do a whole other episode on the horrors of the outback. We could
real creatures of the outback.
Yeah, like that's not going to be. That's just legit. Like if you guys traveled to Australia, my mom went to Australia. She said it's like 100% true. Oh. I heard stories of giant spiders living under people's couches in Australia. And the people say they don't kill them because they eat the cockroaches. Are you kidding me? You're just gonna sit there with like a spider literally bigger than a dinner plate, and you're gonna let it chill there right by your feet just because of dude. Okay, we're getting off topic, but it's horrifying.
It almost makes me think that they overreacted with the abduction because there's so many horrible things that happen normally over there that like, yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. But so anyways, police, they show up. They think it's foul play because Keith and Petra are business partners, and the wife is the one that got abducted, right?
Exactly. Okay. So they think that this might be some kind of lover's triangle type situation. Okay. You know what I mean?
Saucy.
Smooth. Oh, yeah. Keith and Petra informed the officers that Amy had been taken by a quote-unquote spaceship, and then... Don't you laugh at this.
No, that's just as a police officer, like you got these two people saying she was abducted. It's like she killed that woman is dead. These two murdered her.
That's fair. You know what? Okay, looking from the eyes of a police officer, I understand where they're coming from because that makes the most sense.
I love it.
And then the two men were having a hard time believing them. Of course. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. A short time later, Sergeant John Bosenjack, and I swear to God, that's his name, Bosenjack, was called to the scene to help aid the investigation. As the three officers were investigating the outside of the house, they stumbled upon a bush directly outside of the window Amy was taken from the lounge room where she was watching television. The bush had signs of burns from high heat on the side of the bush closest to the window and on the side of the house. There were burn marks as well. They also saw that the screen was slit down the middle as well. As the officers were still investigating the scene, Keith received a phone call. The woman on the other line was saying that he had found a discombobulated and dehydrated woman, who turned out to be Amy, from a BP petrol station in Mackay, almost 800 kilometers north from where the incident occurred. And I just want to point out for like everybody in America listening to this, 800 kilometers is almost 500 miles. And this took place within 3 hours.
Yikes.
So within 3 hours, Amy went from Gundiah, where the Whispering Winds, excuse my French, winery is, to a petrol station, aka gas station in Mackay. That's 500 miles in 3 hours. All right, so the woman calling from the hospital in Mackay, she wanted to tell them that Amy was okay and had been examined by a doctor. So she found Amy at the gas station. Her and a coworker took her to a hospital just to get her checked out. I mean, hopefully that's what most people would do in that situation, right? So at this point, it was getting a little convoluted, right? Because now the Mackay police are involved. And so there's 3 different police departments looking into the case like at the same time. So we have Tiaro, Maryborough, and those two cover essentially Gundiah and Mackay. What happens is one of the detectives from Mackay goes to the hospital to talk to Amy about what happened, right? Amy then made a notarized statement regarding the events to the best of her recollection, knowing that there could possibly be legal ramifications if she gave any, provable false information. So like if she was just making shit up, that doesn't fly in Australia.
Oh yeah, I imagine they have very low tolerance for that. For people who literally dance with death on the daily, they got very little patience for bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Because what they'll do is they'll find out she's lying and just throw her in a pit of spiders.
Mm-hmm. You know? Which is conveniently right outside next to the trash can.
Yeah, it's just kind of there naturally. All right, and the following is what Amy said happened to her. Okay. The last thing she remembered from the house on Whispering Winds Winery was lying on the couch watching television, and then nothing. Blacks out. She woke up alone on a bench in a small, quote-unquote, strange rectangular room, illuminated from all sides and the ceiling. So it was a very bright room. Maybe something to do with the solid light. Again, it keeps popping up in this case. Mm-hmm. Confused, she calls out and was greeted with a distant male voice trying to calm her and reassure her that no harm would come. After more waiting, there was an opening in the wall, and a male figure about 6 feet tall came into the room. And I want to talk about this opening that she's talking about. It wasn't like a door. So it was like a section of the wall just kind of opened.
Ooh.
Right? Which is kind of interesting, but it's kind of futuristic. That's what you did. Hopefully expect in a spaceship. I don't want to see any fucking hinges in my spaceship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Like, if you're going to drop in, like, you know, or drop a bunch of cash to build a, like, cybernetic space vessel, like, why doorknobs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you got to get repairmen out there to fix the hinges. You have to get WD-40 when it starts squeaking and shit. That's just not futuristic. Amy described him as slender, well-proportioned, if you know what I mean, and wearing a full bodysuit of sorts, and had holes in place of his eyes, nose, and mouth. So he didn't have, like, eyes, a nose, or, like, a mouth. There were just holes.
Which is terrifying.
Kind of fucking creepy.
That's super scary. And actually, there's a condition, I forget what it's actually called, where you have a fear of holes. So
it's like trypophobia, tryptophobia, or something like that. Yeah,
it's like a legit thing. And I know also too, especially on the face, a big reason they say a big consistency with a lot of like creatures and things that scare us. They tend to be pale and have really sunken eyes and mouths and stuff. Because I think it's because it closely resembles corpse, and to us, like, seeing a corpse in the mid stages of like decomposition is like
arousing, horrifying.
Obviously, a slight difference of opinion.
My bad.
Mm-hmm, right. A little Freudian. No, that wasn't even Freudian. But yeah, there is like a reason why that like whole look is so scary, and it's all up for debate. But yeah, no. So very scary, 6 foot tall man.
Yeah, very scary. Weird looking. Just like pinhole holes all over his face. Ugh. The being told her that they were taking her back to the area not far, quote unquote, not far from where they took her initially, because, and he said this strange phrase, the lights were wrong at the property and it wasn't safe, which is a very strange thing to say because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, what the fuck?
So we can get into a theory about this later, but solid light and light keeps coming up in this case, and then this being says the lights were wrong at the property and it wasn't safe. Something about light is really important to this specific species of extraterrestrial. It has to be.
Weird. I was gonna say that sounds like, you know, like when you kind of get the reveal of the villain, but he's all covered in shadow and he just says something kind of like cryptic, like, you know, in anime.
Yeah, like in an anime.
Yeah.
You know, but let's not bring that into this.
So we're at the villain silhouette, and he's just giving his little spiel before he goes off to get no exposition until the final season. But anyways, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad you explained that for everybody. Now we are all caught up.
I'm just doing my part to educate America.
No, it was good. I appreciated it. But there's something going on with the light, which we can talk about later. Amy passed out, and then she woke up. She was surrounded by trees and could smell the salty ocean air, so she assumed she was back on Earth, right? Which she was. She was very disoriented and began traveling through the bushland for what she felt like was a very, very long time. Eventually, she stumbled upon a highway road with a gas station, and that is where the woman on the phone found her, and then she was taken to the hospital. So that's kind of comes full circle, and that's what happened. We talked about what happened when Amy disappeared. And now we talked about what happened to Amy during that time, allegedly, right?
Allegedly,
but most likely. After being discharged from the hospital, the police put Amy up in a motel where she could wait for Keith and Petra to come get her, right? Because remember, this is 500 miles away.
Yeah.
All right, and for everybody else in the world, that's 800 kilometers. That's a long ways away. So it's going to take a while for them to get there. So she's in a motel. Next day, upon their arrival, they talk about what happened and made some rather interesting discoveries about Amy. 1, there were triangular marks on her right inner thigh. 2, the same marks on each one of her heels. And 3, most notably, and one of the weirdest things about this case, is that Amy had dyed her hair earlier that week, and her hair had grown in so quickly during the incident, like within those 3 hours, that her roots were showing. So her hair had grown so quickly that the root, like her natural hair color was starting to grow in noticeably, like a noticeable amount.
And that takes a while for that to happen. Right?
Months. Yeah, and her body hair had grown out considerably as well within 3 hours. So there's a lot of things about extraterrestrial abductions or about UFOs. A lot of people talk about lapses in time, right? Time freezing, or all of a sudden you're doing something at like 3 p.m. and then the next thing you know, you look at the clock and it's like 9 p.m. and you have just no idea what just happened.
You've told me about that, and that's a horrifying thing to think about because, yeah, we were chatting. It's like, you ever have those days where you just like suddenly you just kind of forgot what you were doing, or just it felt you like looked like, oh, wow, it's a little bit later than I expected, or I could have sworn it was da-da-da. It's like you might have actually been abducted right then and there.
And you would never know, except for like the obscene amount of pain in your butthole.
I've been spared that so far, but hey, we can dream, right?
Yeah, one day it'll happen. Don't say it too loud. They might get you.
Oh.
All right, so then her body hair also grew out, which is just insane. After these events, Keith and Amy picked up a UFO magazine, hoping to learn more about the experiences others might have had to kind of try and connect the dots, right? And they saw a phone number for the Australian UFO Research Network in the magazine and called Diane Harrison. She answered the phone and listened to the entire story for about an hour, eventually bringing a colleague named Bill Chalker into the investigation. Now, it's important to note that Diane and Bill are two fairly well-known UFO researchers in Australia, right? Because UFO Research Network in Australia is like MUFON in America, the Mutual UFO Network.
Okay, it's an acronym. MUFON.
It's an acronym, yeah.
Okay. I'm learning all this stuff with the rest of you. I know nothing about these societies, and I've never had an incident where I was just like, you know what? Time to call the UFO Society.
Hey, man, you know what? Never know. We keep talking about it. It might happen to you.
Knowing my life, it might actually.
Diane and Bill decide that they're going to call Keith and Amy, and they want to talk to them about what happened on the phone more in detail, or what happened during this incident more in detail, right? So Bill calls the group and at the motel that they were staying at and talked to Keith and Amy, took down a report of it. Keith and Amy agreed to meet with the UFO investigators for further questioning in about 3 days. They were supposed to meet up on the 9th. So one reason that people say this is a hoax is because throughout the next few days, leading up to when Diane and Bill are supposed to meet up with Keith and Amy to talk about everything, Diane and Bill try calling the couple over and over again, and they're ghosting them, right? They're like not answering their calls. But this whole time they're driving to meet them. So they're like worried about, okay, well, hopefully they didn't just like ditch us, right? So people think that this might be a hoax because they don't want to talk to some investigators. Lo and behold, they show up to the hotel. Bill and Diane show up, and they're not there. Right? They already checked out without telling them. They call Keith. Keith finally answers the phone and says they left because they had some kind of Men in Black experience.
I was just about to say, I bet you the government shook him up a bit.
The government. Yeah, but here's the weird thing about his Men in Black experience. He said that they were being followed by a large, dark brown truck with tinted windows. And now the thing about this is it doesn't match Men in Black experiences. They're not brown trucks.
Usually like black, like sedans or vans or...
all blacked out. They usually come to your house. They're not going to like just... I mean, they'll tail you, but they'll probably... If they were going to do anything, the Men in Black were probably going to knock on the door of the hotel they were staying at. They weren't just going to follow them in a car.
Yeah, and I imagine part of that is the psychological fact of we know where you live, we know where you sleep, and just by showing up, they prove that.
Exactly. Yeah, so they're not just going to follow them, you know? So
scary.
As much as I believe in extraterrestrials, UFOs, abductions, Keith's story kind of starts to fall apart here for me, right? Just from what I've heard from other Men in Black experiences. He said it freaked him out so bad that they left town. And that's kind of where this whole thing ends, but there's just so much speculation about what exactly happened because Keith and Amy have never followed up with the investigators, Diane and Bill.
Yeah.
Never followed up with them. So, but the weird thing is that they will go to the news about it. Like on YouTube, I was watching all these videos to try and learn how to pronounce half these fucking words. And I kept seeing news reports about the incident, and they were doing interviews. So they were doing interviews with the media, but they weren't doing investigative interviews with like Diane and Bill from the Australian UFO Research Network, which is kind of suspect, right? I hate to admit it, but I'll admit it when I have to. It's a little suspect.
Yeah. So I can see. Okay. So just like, so in short, just to like get the whole summary of what happened is that it was man, wife, business partner at the same house at night. Beam comes down, wife disappears.
Yes.
They find her 500 miles away in 3 hours from the incident.
Yes.
So that's completely, because like to get from Los Angeles to San Francisco, that's like 560 something miles.
Yeah.
And that takes, even if you're allegedly driving at 75 miles an hour the whole time.
Allegedly,
it still takes you like
5.5, 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to basically she basically was carried from Los Angeles to basically like Santa Cruz or something like that. And in a ridiculous amount of time. I mean, I don't know if maybe it was a special Uber, but that's
yeah, exactly.
pretty dang impossible. And then after that, after they find her, they reunite them. They throw them in a hotel, trying to get their bearings straight. They contact the UFO Society saying, "Hey, we think some UFO stuff happened." Mm-hmm. And also too, so when they were getting interviewed by police, though, like they did get the story straight, though, so they were able to clear any like possible like murder, foul play stuff, right?
Yeah. So nobody was. I mean, because Amy showed back up.
Yeah.
And she she obviously didn't say anything about like Petra or Keith having some kind of conspiracy to get rid of her, or that they attempted anything out of her life, you know?
No reason. Yeah, because if they actually did, she would have. When you get two people try to murder you, it's kind of hard to not talk about it to a policeman.
Yeah. But, I will say one thing, though, I didn't mention is something brief. She did have a slight case of amnesia at the gas station. Oh. And at the first part of the hospital. So like she didn't remember who she was or where she was. Mm-hmm. But her memories came back. So if anything happened to her from like Keith or Petra, I'm sure she would have remembered.
Okay. And then they got reunited. They reached out to UFO Society. But then when UFO Society reached back, they suddenly ghosted them. UFO Society goes out to meet them, which was planned to begin with before they started being weird.
Yeah.
UFO Society shows up they show up and they're already gone. So finally they call and he picks up and he's just like, we got like shook down and kind of very avoidant. I don't want to talk about it. They did a couple local interviews here and there, and that was essentially the end of it though, right?
That was the end of it. So there's no, like any of these cases, there's no closure. Right. Unless it's a complete hoax. Unfortunately, like we don't have proof, but it's not about the proof, Tasker.
Is it?
It's about like the belief. It's about like the wanting to believe and like it could be possible, right? Mm-hmm. You can't tell me it's not possible.
And this is why here's a new segment of the show I just invented called But It Could Be Bullshit. Okay. So I'm going to give you, and this is probably going to be the consistent number one reasoning. They made it up. It's all made up. It's just a story. It's all fake. It never happened. These people might not even exist. Or, this whole story of they made it up. So that's number one. And that's a point because it's low picking fruit. So, I'm always going to start with that because there is a chance all of this is just made up. Maybe it's just a story somebody invented. I don't know.
The point is, she went 500 miles in 3 hours. Her body hair grew out.
Body hair. Okay, that's right. That's another point we need to get to.
And her roots grew out as well. Her roots and her hair, right? Mm-hmm. Like, which is within 3 hours. Dude, if you dye your hair, you know how your hair grows an inch a month on average as a human being, right?
Right.
If her hair grew in fast enough to see roots in 3 hours, something's not right there.
See, case in point one, they made it up. It didn't happen.
You can keep saying it all you want, man. You can keep saying it all you want, but that doesn't make it any less true.
Right. But if we're gonna be legit about this, because that's like I said, it's low hanging fruit. I could literally say that about anything. but I just let it be known that that's my opinion, my first step. So if we're going to take the fact that, okay, she had so she probably had armpit hair and that she didn't have before. And so her hair grew out, and they, in their reports, were saying, no, she had just dyed her hair. This should have happened. So first of all, if this actually happened, they need to lead me to the place where you can get this hair acceleration, because I've been balding since sophomore year of high school and I have almost no hair left.
Oh no.
I would love this trick. I would love it, especially though. Actually, no, I think I'm actually past that point where even if it accelerated, it just would stop growing in certain areas anyway. So, but there's, I just hope.
Just hope. Okay, then stop being a skeptic and hope it's real, because I guarantee you, if an alien comes down here, they'll have technology to grow all your hair follicles back.
Even better if you can decide the type of hair you get.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
So maybe get on their side. Stop harshing their mellow. Get them on your side so you can get your hair back, man.
Maybe over time I might warm up to it. Maybe over time, because I'm a little stumped on this hair thing. That's definitely something This is great. I have my computer right here. I can literally Google anything and just try to fact check and see the plausibility. The 500 miles thing, I think, is a plausible thing that could be done. But also and here's also another thing, is if we're talking a different situation of government picking her up, because that's something I do believe in, is government interfering with our shit, coming in, shaking things up, getting some, experimenting on us, and then throwing us to the UFO Society, saying let it.
Yeah, it's been done. I mean, it's been done on record, MK Ultra and shit like that. They'll take you, they'll experiment on you, and then they'll be like, yeah, this crazy fucker thinks that an alien took him, So that's just kind of it. But okay, final verdict. All I'm gonna say for my part is, yes, the way that they handled things near the end is a little bit damning. I think that if something actually happened, they would have talked to Diane and Bill about what happened, because you can go to the police all you want about a UFO abduction,
right?
But they're not going to do anything for you because they don't believe your ass in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should have probably talked to Diane and Bill. So that's kind of what makes it iffy for me. But on the other hand, the 500 miles thing and all the hair growth within the 3 hours, it's confusing. But that's like I was saying, there's no closure with this case. It's just a lot of speculation.
Well, and another point to bring up too is why hoax it? So even if if we're going off of an implication of say just for the sake of argument here that it was a hoax, what would be the reason for? Because that's a lot of work. That's another thing I was reading about, is how with a lot of conspiracies and stuff, getting a lot of people to be on the same fake story, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's really hard to coordinate. That takes a lot of effort. So if it was a hoax, what could they possibly gain out of it? So there's a part of me that thinks maybe, if we're thinking more on the hoax side of it, that maybe Petra and Keith did have a thing going on, and maybe it was kind of murdery. But then that totally debunks the government picking her up and throwing her 500, because unless this guy had a helicopter, which to my knowledge is not on record, and I'm assuming that would be a pretty big part of the story in the police investigation too, because that would also, if it was more on the murder side, police would have probably continued to research it. So outside of that, then, so that for the most part debunks the idea that there probably was no love triangle thing. So then why would they do a hoax outside of some weird basic local news coverage and stuff like that? There's no money in it.
That's the thing. They got no monetary gain from this, and they didn't seek monetary gain for this. Mm-hmm. It's convoluted. There's reasons people think it's a hoax, and then there's reasons the same person like myself thinks that it's not a hoax. But it's just a confusing story.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason I wanted to cover it was because it's interesting. And I don't think, for how well documented it is, because of how many police departments were involved and the hospital, not a lot of people know about it, because it's halfway across the others. It's upside down that way. You know what I mean? It's over in Australia. So not a lot of people know about it.
Right.
But we just wanted to kind of enlighten you guys on on other cases out there that you might not know about.
And sort of the nature of these stories, in that a lot of them do have a very inconclusive nature. And which is great because we can discuss just as much as it exists, as much as it might not exist and stuff. And that's, I think, why all this paranormal stuff has had such a follow. Because this is nothing new. This is something that has followed mankind since the earliest days. Where back then, though, seeing a extra shiny spider could be extraterrestrial. There was a great show called Dr. Stone, which
okay, whoa, hold on. We're not bringing anime into it twice.
Yeah, well, they're just really brief. Hear me out on this one, because I forget, I think it's phosphorus acid that they brought up, that it just naturally forms in like these little like pools or whatever, and it kills you. But can you imagine being some like somebody from like, I don't know, like those like early, like the year 100, and you're walking near this pool and suddenly you and your friends, like your friend just drops dead and you're like, what the hell? And you and your group suddenly notice that only around this lake that people are dying. Like, that's the nature of like where supernatural begins. I mean, of course, nowadays we know it's a scientific reason. It's a poisonous gas, but like, how crazy, like this is nothing new. It's us trying to explain what can't be explained. And I think what's kind of curious is, even with all the technology, superstition, you would think we would have been able to stamp it out completely, but we're still catching stuff like this. And it's almost as if supernatural evolves with us. And I think that's it's why I'm on board with this podcast, is because I definitely am glad to explore all this and to see sort of the nature of the storytelling that comes with it and how it works into science versus myth. And we're going to explore that, hopefully, for till we start getting paid for it.
Yeah, and then we're out.
Yep, Audi 9000. Gonna retire, started our meth habit. It'll be great.
I'm in this because I love this subject matter. I love extraterrestrials. I love UFOs. I love cryptids. I love hauntings. I love all kinds of stuff like this. And I also like to piss off Tasker.
Yeah, this is true.
So and now we're just going to record it so you guys can enjoy. Do you have any closing statements to give out?
I would say don't completely buy the whole UFO thing, but definitely I'm not one to ignore the weird stuff that happens. It's like, I mean, for as skeptical as I am about all this stuff, like I'm a sucker for like, ooh, that's kind of spooky. Like, oh, that's kind of weird. So I would say, not that we really need to have a definite opinion at the end of any of these episodes or anything.
No. Just if you wanted to say anything to the great people of the world,
I would say, I think I learned this from Rick and Morty. If you do get abducted, hold your breath, because I think if you don't, like, there's some internal damage that actually could happen. So when you feel jello around you at night, and it's not because it's that free Pornhub weekend on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, buddy.
Hold your breath when you see that bright light. It might be a nuclear explosion, possibly too, in which case it doesn't really matter what you do. I mean, you can hide under something, but you're basically going to look like a toasted marshmallow in a half second anyway. So,
that was nice. That was nice.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm glad to contribute.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I'm going to say the opposite of what he said, and believe in all the UFO shit, because when they come down and they start taking over the Earth, or they come up from the subterranean parts of the Earth,
that's another,
which we'll get into eventually, and they start taking over everybody, you might want to be on their good side. All right, but that's just me. All right, well, thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you guys sticking with us for the first episode.
Yeah, and if you're listening from the future, because hopefully we've gotten a lot more popular, and you decided to listen to the first episode where you started, hello from the past. It's 2019. It's almost Christmas, and
it gets better, all right? Our podcast will get better.
Yeah.
So keep listening.
That's the hope, at least. But anyways, so thank you for listening. This has been episode 1 of Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind.